Good morning. Um, I don't know. I feel like I need to share this with you. And first thing I wrote down in my what I call my journal of listening, for the most part, is just where when it's time for God to speak, I try to listen and write down what's being said. And so I have a question. The question is, why make disciples? I was that kid, and I still am actually. That when somebody says we need to do this or we need to do that, first thing pops in my mind is why. Next thing pops in my mind is how. Why do we need to do this? How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it as well as it can be done? That's just I've just always been that way. Okay, and there's a lot of school teachers that are probably still aggravated because I'm that way, but that's okay. They'll Hopefully they'll get over it someday if they haven't. Now they probably don't even remember my name. But the question is, why make disciples? Why? I mean, why is that the way? Why is that the way to um, reach the entire world, all people, with the gospel and give them the opportunity to become a family member of God? Well, it's because it's the only thing that's going to work. You see, we've tried everything else. We've been trying everything else for, oh my goodness, it's 2020. So 1800 years almost, I guess. We've been trying everything else. We've tried church buildings, we've tried church on Sunday, we've tried crusades, we've tried to wipe all the heathens out of the Middle East, I guess. We've tried all these kind of things. Jesus told us to do one thing: go make disciples. So in making a disciple, when you build somebody, when you establish uh, a relationship with somebody, let me make this. Well, I guess it just Maybe stop it from dinging. When you establish a relationship with someone, God brings you somebody, and you begin to provide information and encouragement and get to know them, and they begin to really, we call it, I'll say this one is strong. Well, what I really mean by strong is God is strong in them. Okay, they have learned not to rely on themselves, not to rely on their thinking, not to rely on their ways, not to rely on their own resourcefulness or any of those things. They have learned to rely on God for their thought life, for their actions, and they have disciplined themselves not to be them, I guess is a good way to put it. So, and what that does is when a person discovers that closeness and the peace that comes with it, and the when your mind starts to get clear and you start to be able to actually let God govern your mind and your thoughts and your actions the way He wants to, because He knows what's best for us. We don't. Then you become what I call strong. You're strong in Him. He's strong in you. Excuse me, I got hiccups for a minute. And that creates a human that will stand. That creates a human that will be able to continue to present the gospel, and that creates a human that Jesus begins to bring people to, and He begins to train them. He or she. Women need to be making disciples too. I firmly believe that. And what that does is that establishes a presence in a region of the world where the good gospel will continue to be shared or proclaimed with all people. Because there is no telling how many babies have been born all over the world since I started making this video. And so we need to establish a groups of people that can just continually grow and multiply and reach all people on the face of the earth, because that's when the end of this age comes, and that's when, followed by Jesus' return at some point, and that's when all our problems go away. That's when God takes the world that He made and the men and women that He made to inhabit this world completely back to what He originally intended it to be, in terms of how we interact and in terms of our relationship. See, that's when everything that's wrong here ceases to be, because that's when Satan will no longer be allowed to exist here. That's why we should be making disciples. Now, what is disciple making? What does that really consist of? Well, to me, it's building people strong enough in the Lord to be able to need God and rely on Him the way He wants us to. You know, that's what it is. You provide information at times, you provide teaching at times, you provide encouragement at times, you hold one another up in prayer, and hopefully you show them what it means to know the peace of God. And what it means to properly represent the Creator of the universe as best we can. And the ones that, you know, and when Jesus sees you start to mature in your relationship to that point, then He will bring other people to you that want the same thing, like-minded people. He'll bring them. You don't have to look for them. And so you do want to make yourself available, You want to make sure people know you're available to them. So, what's the first step in making disciples? It's to become close enough to Jesus that he knows it's time to bring you someone to help. That's why we went through the quiet time studies twice. And we'll probably go through them more. And we'll probably go through more of them before this year's over. It's, and it's bringing people that to you that will see you as the real thing when it comes to being serious about what this life really is, knowing that it's going to end, knowing that we are all going to stand at the judgment seat of God, and knowing that we are going to meet Jesus face to face at least once, and restructuring and reprioritizing our existence here so that when that meeting occurs, Jesus is happy to see us, and he's happy that we know him. He's happy that we know the sound of his voice. He's happy that we put his agenda ahead of our own agenda in this life, and that we were willing to do the right thing, to do what he says is the right thing, not what we think. When they see you, they'll see someone who's really serious about doing life God's way. And so in order to become the person that God knows you can be, and the person that Jesus knows you can be in him, you have to spend time with him. You have to spend time in his word. You have to listen. You have to pray. You need to have your handy dandy journal down here to write down what he says, and let him change you. And then you start seeing, you get out of the day-to-day and the circumstances and the things, the obstacles, and you see that this, just how brief, what a tiny little brief period of time that you're spending on this planet. And so it's going to be impossible for you to help anybody else become a true disciple of Jesus until you become one yourself. So, let him worry about that. Let him worry about when it's time to bring somebody to you. You just concentrate on being as close to him and as obedient to him as you can possibly be. Concentrate on being led by the Holy Spirit. Concentrate on learning as much as God is willing to show you about his ways. And then he'll start bringing people. So don't be in a rush. I'm 58 years old. And really, I feel like I'm just now starting to get it. So don't be in a rush. I'll tell you about a disciple-making session I had this morning with a man named Philip Frederick, who is in Kenya. I think he's 23 years old, and he calls me pretty much every morning we talk, and this morning we talked about the rooster in his village, or the cock. They call them cocks in Africa. And usually I'll hear when we're talking, I hear the rooster crowing. And I didn't hear the rooster this morning, so I asked him, I said, "Where's the rooster?" And he forgot that I call them roosters, so we had to get that cleared up. And I finally called it a cock, and he started laughing. Then the cock or the rooster started crowing. I said, "Oh, there he is." And so I asked him, "What's does the rooster have a name?" And he started laughing. He said, "Rooster doesn't have a name. The name, we just call him the cock." And I said, "Well, I think the rooster needs a name. What do you think we ought to name him?" And he named the rooster. And so we talked about that a little bit, and we talked about some other things about trying to get him a better phone and how that's going, and different things of that nature. And I'm telling you that, okay, to tell you that what we're doing is we're getting to know one another. Okay, you can't help somebody until you know them. You got to spend enough time with them to know them. And then God will start giving you things, ways to encourage them and ways to help them. And He'll, because you have studied and you have learned and you understand Jesus' strategy. See, Jesus never scheduled a class that we know of. Jesus never. There was no, Jesus didn't get up front of a group of people and preach the word on Sunday. He didn't do that. He never looked for crowds, but he never turned them away. He was all there. He was there to help as much as he could. He healed people. He cast out demons. And because God was telling him to. He said, "Whatever, I've only said what my Father told me to say. I've only done what my Father. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Because everything I have done here and in human form on this planet has been at His instruction." But the way He taught His men was to be with them, just to get to know them, to understand them, and then just go do things. And as they did things, and they saw Him do things, and they saw Him work, and they saw the way He was with people, and they saw the way He worked with people, and the way He loved people, then, why'd you do this or why'd you do that? They would have questions after He had done what God told Him to do, and then, they were showing interest. They wanted to know what's going on. Why did you say this? Why did you say that? What does this mean? And then He would explain to them, and He would show them, the philosophy or the strategy behind it. So, disciple making is osmosis. Okay, it's osmosis. It's knowing one another. It's hanging out with one another. It's talking to one another in just casual conversation, just knowing people, and then talking about, as you learn the person, then, and they learn you, then you're able to communicate on a level that's going to help them see how much you have learned to need God and want to do the same. Because until we learn how much we need God and how much we need God's ideas and how much we need God's instruction and how much we need God's leading in our lives, we're not going to be very much use to anybody. And most of you are much younger than me, and I'm very thankful for that, because hopefully you're going to, this is going to sink in, and you're going to start to look for these things a lot sooner in life than I did. But just wanted to share that with you. And I hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and hope you get closer to God. Hope you spend a lot of time with Him today. Hope there's time available for that, and I hope you make the best use of it you possibly can. I love you. I'm praying for you. God bless you.